tell a story about the wildest things, the wildest animals in the world, which are cats that live on the street that you can think you can make them live in your house. Some people call them feral cats. Other people call them strays. I call them like any kind of thing that I see them. When I see them, I just go. And I want to bring every animal into my home. So, fortunately, when I was about 21, I lived in this really crappy punk house in Providence, Rhode Island. I had really strong ideals and absolutely no heat or air conditioning. And I lived with maybe 5-10 people, depending on the day, who lived in this big house. They didn't believe in locking doors. They didn't believe in eating meat. And they certainly didn't believe in bringing in an exterminator for when we had a mouse infestation. So, like, I will be the first to admit that I was not cut out for this lifestyle. Like, I had a very, like, straight and narrow, and I was a very overachiever high schooler. So when it came to, like, and college student, actually. So when it came to that, I was like, I'm gonna rebel! And I was, like, 22, which is far and away too late to rebel. But I did by joining AmeriCorps and moving to Providence and being in a punk band and living in a house with no heat or air conditioning and, like, so many mice. Like, so many mice. And, like, all the kids in the house that were vegan were like, don't hurt the mice, man. Like, the mice are just, like, trying to get by. And I'm like, that's true, but... and so, like, I kind of, like, went behind their back and just, like, bought, like, poison and just put it places because, like, they weren't going to notice. But that didn't deter these little mice. And the straw that broke the mousy back was when I found one in my bed. Yeah. And to be fair, again, punk house, Providence, early 2000s, my bed was lofted. Who had a lofted bed? I had a lofted bed. So, like, that mouse, like, had to climb up into, like, a 7-foot tall bed and be in there when I got home from my shift at a very cool bar that I didn't get home until for, like, 3 o'clock in the morning from. So I was like, okay, if we can't exterminate the mice, what can we do? And they were like, well, maybe we should get, like, a cat. And I'm like, okay. Where are we gonna get the cat from? And they're like, oh, this warehouse down the street has like 7 cats because like everybody like moved to New Mexico. Like they went to Burning Man and then they just like stayed. And I was like, so where? Like, so these cats are just living in a warehouse? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, let's go get a cat. So we go to get this cat, and we're supposed to get 2. And their original names are Nightmare and Horror Show. I decide that we're going to rename them the Sheriff, capital T, and the Deputy Whiskers, because that sounds adorable. So we go and we have like just a bag, like not even a bag that you hold a cat in, but just a regular bag. And we go to get the cats, and they're like, oh yeah, we don't know where the one is. I'm like, you just lost a cat in this warehouse. They're like, yeah, we don't know where the horror show is. So we just end up with Nightmare. And Nightmare is this like tiny, scraggly black cat with big buggy green eyes. And they give us, you know like the thing that you roll paint in? It's like a paint liner, I think it's called. They give us that with like a half a cup of kitty litter in it. And a sour cream container that has a piece of masking tape that says the revolution will not be funded on rice and beans on it, and like 2.5 cups of stale cat food. And they're like, here you go. So I bring the cat home, and my housemates are like, okay, awesome, we have a cat now. And they like proceed to leave. And I look at the cat, and the cat looks at me and he goes, I was like, what's your problem? And he goes, I was like, are you sick? Like, so I look at the cat, and the cat just looks at me and goes, and I was like, oh my god. And I call my best friend who has a car, right? And that's a very important thing when you're a punk and you're 22. And I call her and I say, oh my god, we have to go to Petco. I have a cat and I think it's gonna die, right? Because it's just looking at me and go, over and over again. And so I run to Petco, and like on my bartender salary, right, I get him like a really fancy cat thing and a bunch of food, and like, because immediately I see the little thing and I'm like, no one is gonna take care of this little wild thing. Like he just like looks at me and I'm like, you're gonna die without me. And maybe I'm gonna die without you because I'm gonna get some sort of weird mouse infestation thing and they're gonna bite me in my sleep and I'm gonna die. So like we need each other here. And so I go and I get the thing, like I get the cat thing, the like cat box, and I get like really fancy food for him. And then I talk to the lady and I'm like, hey, my cat's going like this. And she goes, oh, you're gonna need malt gel, and you're gonna have to hold them down and like shove the malt gel in their thing because they're low on vitamins or vitamin deficient. So I get home, and Deputy Whiskers is nowhere to be found, in classic horror show nightmare style. I find him, and I shove him down, and I feed him this malt stuff. And like from that point on, every morning when I go to leave to the bar, I put like a little thing of food out, I make sure his cat litter is gone, and I leave. And so this proceeds for maybe like 6 months. And I go to move out of the house. And my housemates go, are you gonna bring your cat? I'm like, let's work on those possessive nouns. My cat? And they're like, well, yeah. Like, you take care of him. And I'm like, well, no, because we got this house cat to control the mice. Like, there was no bonding thing that happened between me and this cat. And they go, well, if you don't take him, we're just gonna let him out on the street. And he's gonna go back to whence he came. And I look at the little deputy, and he looks at me. I'm like, all right, you. And I go in, instead of the paper bag that we originally got him in, I go in and I get his very nice Sherpa-lined cat carrier. And instead of the like tin thing, I go and I get his very nice cat litter box. And instead of his crappy food in the revolution will not be televised on rice and beans, I go and I get his like Purina One Choice. I pack him up and we go our little way. And I'm happy to say that both he and I grew out of our rebellious phase, because now Deputy Whiskers is 22 pounds. He lives the life of a king, and we live in an exquisitely beautiful loft in Chinatown. So I really think we've both made it.